Montana, 1993. The first snowfalls arrived early that year, and with them came a heavy silence that seemed to peer through the closed windows of the small town of Elk Hollow, in the heart of the Rocky Mountains. There, each man tended to his own land. The focus wasn't on comfort, it was on survival. Store, seal, close. But he did the opposite. While the others reinforced the windows, Eli Sanders headed towards the forest. While his neighbors covered their roofs with tarps, he dug a hole in the ground which had been hardened by the cold. "That man is going to end up dying alone," someone murmured. It wasn't anger. It was certainty. It was December. And he was alone. Not by choice, but out of exhaustion. The last time anyone saw him, he was carrying a burlap sack and disappearing among the pine trees. Homeless, without proper tools, without support. There was only one plan: to build an underground shelter, hidden in the middle of the forest before the real blizzard arrived. And she was coming. Elk Hollow was almost invisible on the map, a sequence of wooden houses twisted by time, clustered together like old friends who stopped speaking to each other. In 1993, the economic collapse that had hit the countryside after the end of the Cold War left more visible marks in the empty supermarkets, the roads forgotten by the government, the suspicious eyes. There, survival was the local language. Nobody asked. Nobody helped. And that's why no one was surprised when Eli returned. After almost 2 years missing, he was the quiet son of a seamstress in the city. He had left discreetly after a military scandal. He fell asleep during a surveillance shift, and an essential piece of equipment froze. He was discharged. Without fanfare, he returned expressionless, speechless, unhurried. "I only brought a canvas bag." There was no welcome, no questions, only snow. In the following weeks, he tried to reintegrate himself. He chopped wood for Mr. Garrison, tended to the roof of the abandoned church. But there was something strange about the way he paused before words, as if waiting for orders, and in the silence he maintained even when receiving thanks. He seemed out of touch with time. And then, the first big snowstorm hit. Big, premature. While the others prepared to seal greenhouses and stockpile firewood, Eli did the unthinkable. He sold everything he had: his old military boots, an army blanket, a cracked clock. With the money, he bought a used axe, an iron shovel, and a kerosene lamp. "Are you going to build a cabin in the middle of all those dead trees?" someone mocked. He didn't answer. The next day, he set off before dawn, following an unnamed trail that crossed the east side of the city. For 3 days, he returned only to fetch more rope, empty cans, and matches. No one knew what he was doing. Some said it was a hunting lodge. Others thought he was evading government records. But soon he stopped coming back. The rumors began. It must be frozen already. It was coyote food. Those weaklings don't last in the cold. But what nobody saw, the last time he was seen, he was smiling. The trail Eli was following led nowhere. It was an old logging path used before the area was declared a reserve. Crooked trees covered in lichen, fallen over time. There, in a dark valley, he chose the spot. Without natural shelter, no old buildings. It barely lasted. Hostile. But for him, it was enough. Because that wasn't an escape. It was under construction. He dug as if the cold could be tricked with patience. He slept next to the shallow hole, covered with branches. He would light small fires with the last oil from the lamp. The underground chamber gradually emerged. Low, narrow, but dry. Intertwined branches, mud, roots like natural beams. No nails, no treated wood. Problems came in a series. The entrance collapsed. Water seepage from snow. The ceiling cracked under the weight. But he fixed it. Silently. Adapted. Corrected. Eventually, time stopped being measured in days, and began to be measured by the thickness of the frost. While the city forgot him, only one child remembered. Sarah's son, the former teacher, began to follow in her footsteps. One day he left a frozen apple on a tree trunk. Eli saw it. He didn't grab it right away. He waited for the boy to leave. Then, she put the apple away, silently. On the morning of the 8th day, the sky dawned as white as paper, not very deep, lifeless. The storm was beginning. The shelter was still incomplete. The walls were shaking. The entrance was clogged. The fire wouldn't light, but he didn't give up. He created a side exit. He channeled the smoke through a hollow branch. He sealed the cracks with clay. He used frozen moss as insulation. He made straw into his blanket. Until, for the 3rd time, The fire caught, weak, stable, and inside the chamber he smiled again. The next day, another small footprint. Instead of an apple, a cloth with 3 matches. Eli put it in his pocket, and in response he placed a stone next to the tree trunk. But in the city they laughed at him. They said it would bring bad luck, that he would come asking for help, but nobody was going up the trail. It was easier to laugh. It's safer to forget about it. Up there, Eli reinforced the walls with ashes. It created condensation channels. It avoided moisture. I learned from every mistake. Until on the 4th day of the blizzard, the fire went out. He went out in search of firewood, almost blind, feeling my way through trees. It fell, but he laughed. He laughed to himself. The cold has invisible layers. It goes in through the bones, then through the mind, and finally, instinct. On the 12th day, he made a mistake. He went out to fetch snow. He left the entrance open. He walked 30 meters. Upon returning, everything was white. The entrance had disappeared. He began to dig with his bare hands. The ice cut through. His fingers were bleeding. Eli was meters away from the shelter, but I couldn't see him. What was once a refuge, it turned into a trap. He sat down. He closed his eyes. If he slept there, he would die. If he dug in the wrong spot, the entrance would collapse. If he remained standing, the cold would kill him from the inside out. The decision, like all the others, came in silence. Eli stood up. He took a still live ember from the small metal can he used as a lantern, and he threw it forcefully against the white floor. The smoke rose. A crack appeared in the snow. But he dug with his elbows, his forearms, his chest. He tore open the entrance, sliding inside with the falling snow. The camera sank a little. It was wet, unstable, but she was still alive, and him too. The consequences. The following morning, everything slowly crumbled. The ground was soaked, the straw rotten. The fire refused to light. Eli didn't have the strength to start over. He slept standing up, leaning against the mud wall, the dampness rising up his back. That's when he heard a sound, weak, outside, a cry. It took me a few seconds to understand. It was a child. He climbed with difficulty. The snow had receded a little. On the trail, small footprints, dragged. It was the boy, the one who left apples. Now he was kneeling. His arms were wrapped around his own body. Her cheeks were purple. Her eyes were half closed. He had tried to deliver something, perhaps matches, perhaps a note, but he was caught in the storm. The forest, motionless, watched. Eli did not hesitate. She carried the boy in her arms. He descended carefully. The shelter was cold, but it was better than dying out there. He laid the boy down on the damp straw. He covered him with his own coat. He used the last match from the cloth. He blew, for long minutes. Flames. Life. For the first time, 2 hearts were beating inside. The space, which was once tactical, has become a real refuge. Neither of them spoke, but when the heat arrived, the boy gripped Eli's wrist tightly, and he fell asleep. In the city. Nobody knew where they were. Sarah, the mother, wept silently. 3 men volunteered to go after them. One turned back after 100 meters. Another said it was too late. The third one hesitated, but they weren't the ones who found the shelter. It was the child who returned, 3 days later, alone, with the oversized coat falling off his shoulders. He stopped in front of the house. He simply said, "He is alive." Final storm. The shelter remained standing, but Eli was beginning to falter. The boy had returned to the city. Eli was alone again. But now, something had changed. He was no longer digging just for himself. In the early hours of the 20th day, the final storm arrived. It was no longer a snowstorm. It was winter itself, howling. The shelter was shaking. Cracks were appearing in the walls. The ceiling was sagging. Eli reinforced this as best he could, with compressed ice, with the body itself serving as thermal insulation. He threw ash on the walls, everything to resist. But the air began to thin. The small chimney was clogged. The smoke was coming back, suffocating. Eli made a desperate decision. He opened the entrance. It went out. Outside, the forest was a white wall. No sound, no direction. He climbed onto a tree trunk. He broke the top of the chimney with a dry branch. He poured alcohol from the lamp. He set it on fire. A column of smoke cut across the sky. The shelter was breathing again, but not Eli. While going down, he slipped. It fell hard onto a frozen root. His leg cracked. He shouted, not from pain, but out of anger. The shelter was saved, but he could no longer walk. He dragged himself along. Every meter is a struggle, every inch a decision, until he heard something. Steps, not from an animal, humans. But there's smoke. 3 men appeared. One of them was the one who had hesitated before. Another one, the boy's grandfather. The third, the one who had mocked Eli weeks before. Eli said nothing, but he stretched out his arm, grasping the branch he was using to move. The man who had laughed, he grabbed the other side. Speechless. Together they went down to the shelter. Recognition. Inside the shelter, silence. The fire was still burning. The walls held firm. The roof is firm. The older one looked around. He simply said, "This is more solid than it seems." Eli lowered his eyes. He smiled. Brief. Real. Eli returned to the city supported by 2 men on their shoulders. Nobody celebrated. There was no party. Only Sarah, kneeling, embraced him in silence, and a child running by without saying anything. But the story didn't end there. The legacy. 2 days later, the shelter held. It's hotter than the houses. Perhaps he knew what he was doing. The visits have begun. First, out of curiosity, then, out of necessity. Men with children, women with babies. Firewood is running out. Help is not arriving. Eli was leading the way along the trail, with crutches, without explaining. It was just showing. The shelter, once secret, has become a last resort. One night, one hit. It was him, the mocker, now with bandaged hands, with a broken voice. "My fireplace broke. My wife is trembling. My son won't speak." Eli said nothing. He made a gesture. The following morning, there were 3 new occupants in the shelter. And him? He slept in the snow, outside, smiling. Winter is over. Inspired, men began building similar shelters. But Eli's remained the most sought after. Not because it's the biggest, but because it was the first, not by force, but through persistence. One afternoon, the boy, now taller, asked, "Why did you dig here when everyone said it was impossible?" Eli looked out at the forest, to the land, to heaven, and he replied, "Because nobody looked at this place, and that made it perfect. No lesson, immoral, only the truth, silent, like everything he did. Some build houses, others build shelters. A shelter isn't just made of walls. It is made of silence, of refusal, of resistance. That's what exists, even when no one is watching, especially when nobody is watching." Eli never sought to be a hero. He never apologized. He didn't even need applause. But in that brutal winter, when the whole world froze around us, it was in the hole that everyone ignored, that life chose to survive. And you? How many times have people doubted you? How many times have they pointed, laughed, and said it wouldn't work? Sometimes what you need, it's not about proving anything to anyone. It's like digging deep, in silence, and to build, even if no one sees it. Because at some point, they will need what you built. And if you found this story intense, wait until you see what happened to the shelter years later. Something that no one, not even Eli, could have imagined. Subscribe now and turn on notifications. The next chapter of this story is closer than you think.